This is the Cliff Yates Show. Personal growth, motivation, inspiration, and philosophies for a great life.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Cliff Yates Show. I got a great guest for you today. Real treat. Gary Chupik. Is that how I say it, Gary? Is that the way?
Got it.
All right, man. I'm honored. And you know what? Someone on your website, an elite coach, said Gary might be the best mental training coach in America. And I want to say right off the bat, before you do anything else, when you leave the show, go to elitemindsetnation.com. That's where you can see everything about Gary and all the amazing, well, he's a professional mental performance coach is what he is. I'm reading my own notes. And he's been working with the NFL, players individually, teams, Major League Baseball. And I was so surprised doing my research. You were a pastor for 27 years?
I was still ordained.
Oh, my, Gary, that is so amazing. And I took a note from something I think on your website because I so agree with it. I'm my own experiment, right? I mean, I practice what I preach. I try to walk the talk, and you do the same, right?
Yeah. No, we get to stress test everything on us. And it's interesting. It's, when I want to feel sorry for myself, when things aren't going well on the external part of my life, I'm just like, I wonder if my stuff works, and I wonder how much, weight I can put on the 2x4 between two chairs. And I wonder if this stuff really works. And so I'm happy to report that most of it does, or all of it does. But yeah, we definitely are our own experiments.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because sometimes I'll be, the trolls will leave remarks, do you have to film yourself going into the gym? But I feel like I have to say, I'm walking the talk. If I'm telling you I'm getting after it and I'm doing progressive weight training, here I am. I'm actually doing it. I'm not out there just talking about it. So I think that's important, right?
Yeah, I think at least in my world and what I see online, I think 80% of all the influencers don't practice what they preach, right? So if you're in the very few that do that, then good for you.
Yeah, I took some notes on a lot of stuff that you said on one of your recent podcasts when you were a guest. It really hit home to me, and how you try to get people to a neutral way of thinking and also a reset. Because I had a crazy goal at one time and I succeeded. I wasn't very good, but I got my PBA card, my Professional Bowlers Association card, and then I would actually use that in bowling, and a lot of pros did. In other words, and when they reset, they had a pre-shot routine, right? And a lot of people do that in golf, and you do that with athletes and like team sports also.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's something called the red reset button. I got this from
I like
George
that.
Kittle.
I like that.
Yeah, from the tight end for the San Francisco 49ers. And so he had this red reset button on his elbow or something. He had taped on, and he had drew this red reset button on his
That's
on the
great.
tape. And after every play, no matter what happened, whether it was good or bad, whether he caught a touchdown pass or missed a block, it actually didn't matter. So he would go through with that play. He would hit the red reset button on his way to the huddle because he needed to get back to be his very best so that he could execute the next play. And so it's kind of like the next play, like feel bad for about, half a second or a second and then move on to the next thing. But that's only part A of the two-part equation. Part B is going into neutral thinking. So neutral thinking is you actually remove judgment from the previous, play at all. Like you just don't remember it. Like you choose not to remember it.
Right. Yeah.
So going into neutral thinking it's not positive thinking. It's not negative thinking. Both of those things are very distracting. And people will say, wait a minute, positive thinking can actually distract. Absolutely it can. Because you can get carried away with your own press releases, right? You can get carried away with how great you did the last play, but you're not focusing on the next play. So you got to make that shift and that transition very, very quickly so that you can be at your best for this next play. So red reset button and neutral thinking in sequence.
Yeah, I like something else you said. Instead of positive thinking, optimistic thinking. Why are you so optimistic? Because I've done the training, I've done the preparation, and that's why I believe that I can win. So you're kind of marrying that because you said and it's true, right? Positive thinking alone could get you hurt, maybe killed. Yeah.
Yeah, it can get you hurt, it can get you killed. You can be dishonest with yourself, telling yourself you can do something when you actually can't.
Right.
So you got to prove things to yourself. And this is like a Chupikism, I call it.
Yeah,
And
Chupikism. I like that.
yeah, it's a Chupikism. I don't know how much trouble I get into saying this, but listen, there's only one way to build confidence.
That's right.
There's a lot of faux ways to build confidence that are maybe, you might be able to use it in the moment, but it's not real. But the
Right.
only real way to build confidence is to prove things to yourself. That's the
Yeah.
only way. There is no other way. So, for
Right.
example, if you wanted to give a speech, let's say, and you're making a big presentation, you know, well, actually, I discovered a second way. So it's prove it and also preparation. So if you
Right.
are prepared to go on stage, then you have a lot better shot at succeeding. If you've done things to prepare, then you can go on the stage confident and you probably will do great, but you got to prove things to yourself. So the preparation is kind of in the prove it too. Like what reasons are you giving yourself to be optimistic that you can do something? And if you can't give yourself reasons to be optimistic, then you probably shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, man, I can use that. I'm going to use that reset in my tennis because I play a lot of tennis, and I used to do it in bowling too. In other words, so I had to go on. You miss a spare, you go to the next frame, and a lot of that was the pre-shot routine. Take out the towel, you roll the ball over the towel the same way each time, throw it down, and you do the same movements because it resets your mind that you're getting ready for the next shot. Like you said, get ready for the next thing. But I'm going to use that in my tennis too. Maybe I'll have it on a wrist thing. Maybe I'll put a red dot
Well,
on it because you got to forget
yeah,
the last shot right now.
yeah, that's right. Like you can put stuff on your body, like it's the kinetic piece, right? Like if you can attach a physical movement that matches your mental framework, and then it
Yeah,
works much better. But there's something I've taught, and it's one of my secret sauces, but I'm willing to share it with you and your
yeah.
audience. I've shared it with the FBI. I shared it with police officers in California. I've shared it with baseball, tennis, golf, multiple environments, football, and so here's the protocol. And one of the reasons why the protocol is so good is because it distracts yourself from thinking about all the negative things. So here's the protocol. So C stands for control yourself. Okay. So whether you're resetting and going into neutral thinking, maybe it's a physical movement on your body that matches kind of where your mentality is, like that reset button. But C stands for control yourself. So you can imagine a police officer walking up to a car after a stop, right? The first thing he's got to do is control himself, so his parasympathetic system is in place and everything is where it should be, so you can think clearly, because we don't want cortisol rushing through your body, because cortisol, from a hormonal standpoint, is a neural inhibitor. It actually
Right.
contracts your blood vessels, so we want to make sure that we're, as I call, calm focus, right? You want that calm focus. So C stands for control yourself. A stands for assess the situation. And your brain is magnificent. It can pull up stuff so fast that, like, I can put you in an unfamiliar environment, and you can open your eyes for 1 second and probably tell me about 30 or 40 or 50 things about that room. Your brain is remarkable at
Yeah.
processing it. So assess the situation. And then P stands for plan, make a plan. So what's your plan walking up to a car, let's say at a police, stop, or if you're a baseball pitcher, you have 17 seconds between pitches, right? What's your plan? And then E stands for execute, which is trust your plan, trust your training, and trust your instincts. And we
Right.
want we want people to play instinctually in high pressure environments. It's
Oh
not
yeah.
all just sort of trust your training, because you can't remember everything. But you can trust your plan, trust your training, and trust your instincts. And that way we probably bring the best out of the athlete or the performer.
Yeah. Definitely, we had to use that in police work. I worked patrol for over 25 years, and you have to really learn to reset because you got to leave that last call, the last baggage from that. When you're going to a new call or a new contact with someone, they don't know what you've just been through, and you need to reset and come to them with a fresh mind. And so, man, that's very important to reset, man. In police work, that can really, really apply. And I like what you said about we have to trust because you've got to really, like you always say, too many thoughts. You got to lessen the thoughts, right? And trust the training, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I say thoughts are like calories. Like if you have
Yeah,
too many calories, you get slow, lethargic, and you go into a coma almost. And it's the
yeah,
same thing with thoughts. And one of the most common things I hear from athletes anyway, and business people, is that I think too much. Well, what does thinking too much cost you? Well, thinking
right,
too much actually causes you to hesitate.
right.
And hesitation in high pressure environments like sports or in law enforcement, and that's life and death, or it's the difference between winning and losing. So that hesitation actually is very, very costly. It might even be just a split second.
It's funny. I've hit tennis balls with some really high performance players. Several clicks above my level, or I've seen it in games where somebody hits a really fast serve, or they really hit a great ball with a great pace on it, and the people returning the ball, they actually return it perfectly or with great pace because they're out of their own head. They had to react. They couldn't think about it. Whereas if they thought and they had time to prepare for that shot, they got in their own head. But if they were just reacting based on their practice and performance, they had no trouble.
That's an excellent analogy. Yeah, because if you overthink that, you're already done. And
Yeah.
someone explained it to me this way one time when I was doing some military work is like if you're in a fighter jet and you have an opponent in the arena in the sky and you're trying to find the perfect shot and the other guy is just firing because he's reacting, you're
Yeah.
probably already dead. You've thought and now you're dead. So you
Yeah.
really do have to learn to trust your training, trust your instincts, and trust your plan.
Man, that's so true. Man, God, discipline over motivation. That's been in my face the last 4 or 5 days just from people and self-led. Go talk about that because I'm into that. I mean, motivation. It's got to be self-motivation. Number one. Number two, discipline beats motivation every time. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. It's funny. People have a sort of an interesting relationship to the word discipline. And some people like it. Some people really hate it. Some people love the word habit. Some people really there's a visceral reaction that everyone has to those terms. But I like to use rhythm. Like what are the rhythms that you can place in your life to give you the best position to succeed? And I think if you don't worry so much about the outcome because you can't control it
Yeah.
anyway. But I mean, you can throw the perfect pitch in the world, right? And it can still get hit
Yeah.
for a home run. But if you just kind of invest and focus on your rhythms, because where your focus goes, your energy flows.
That's
So if you
right.
focus on your rhythms and not worry about the outcome that you can't control anyway, now you're putting yourself in the best position to succeed. So the self leadership necessary to be able to be a high performer, it does take practice. However, the habits and the rhythms and the disciplines are all an expression of your identity. So I teach something called identity based performance.
Yeah.
And what you want to do is sort of like figure out who you are, because that's your identity, and then
Right.
figure out like what would someone who practices these things do to be successful that was wired like me. And if I
Right.
can help someone sort of evolve as a human rather than say, oh, well, try this or try this or try that and throw a bunch of darts at the wall and hoping something will stick in the bullseye,
Right.
that's not that helpful. And oftentimes we don't have that much time to be able to help somebody. Sometimes we need to speak in 15-second funnels so that we're communicating an idea to an athlete or to a high performer.
Ah.
And
Yeah.
they don't have all the time to process things. So you have to learn how to speak in 15-second funnels to get the
Yeah.
point across. So yeah, there's a definitely the idea of discipline. And one of the things that I've been playing with recently, in fact, I teach at a local college here on mental performance, and that is that sometimes you need to sacrifice and sometimes you need to discipline. And they're different.
Yeah.
Like sometimes the discipline, sometimes people can dial into the discipline and they find that a little bit easier because they've done it for so long and they're very, very disciplined people. But in order for them to go to their next level, they have to sacrifice. And that's a different approach to mental performance. And it's not meaning that sacrifice is better or discipline is better. It just says which one is going to give you the result that you're looking for. Is it discipline or is it sacrifice?
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Another thing I like that you said, because it's so true, and that's why I try to be heavy. Like on my goals, I'm heavy on the activity goals and try to be light on the outcomes, right? Because you can't control outcome. And I know you coach that, right?
hmm Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting because we get so hung up on outcomes, but that's like the last thing we can control because typically it's future oriented. None of us are
That's
good enough
right. Yeah.
to either know or control the future. And so life is really about putting yourself in the best position to succeed. And if you can do that on a daily basis,
Yeah.
then you are going to live a high performance lifestyle. Like there are moments in my day that I call blue sky time.
Yeah.
And I think about like what can I do that like this week? What would be a dream come true this week?
Yeah.
And and then just to say, okay, well, that sounds so crazy. And so what I call that is inspired action.
Yeah.
So there's action, but then there's inspired action.
Yeah.
So the inspired action is, yeah, that would be dreamy. But I wonder if I could take a step toward that. I don't have to actually figure it all out, but if I took a step toward that, what would it look like? And is it
Yeah.
possible that could happen? And that has happened to me multiple times throughout my lifetime. And one good example is I've been wanting to get in contact with Bill Belichick at the time.
No
The
shit.
Patriots
Yeah.
seemed to be the best team on the planet, and I
Yeah.
just thought, oh, wouldn't it be great to work with them? And I was trying to find Bill Belichick's. I was trying to find Bill Belichick's email address, and so I
Yeah.
eventually found it. And you know what his email address was?
Okay, I
The
can imagine.
janitor at thepatriots.com.
Oh my God, that's so great, right? Oh my goodness.
The janitor at thepatriots.com, and we ended up having an email conversation.
God, that's great. Yeah.
But you know, you won't know until you dream it. And
Yeah.
I think
If you don't ask,
worth
yeah,
something.
that's right. Yeah. Something else you said. I'll try to get it right. Right. Your current behavior is the biggest indicator of future success. And I got that right?
Yeah, I think the business world has it wrong.
Yeah.
And something that the business world could really learn from the athletics, mental performance, and sports world. So we say that in business, we say that past performance is the greatest indicator of future success, but not for high performance
No.
athletes.
Yeah.
Present behavior is the best indicator for future success. So worry about today, do your best today, set yourself up for success
Yeah.
for tomorrow, but you got to dial into to today because it's got to start somewhere. So yeah, we think, you know, people are fluid and people can change and grow and evolve.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we don't believe that your future is already stuck because of your past. No, like if you get on it today, you have a great chance at succeeding
Yeah.
in the future.
Yeah. Tony Robbins says the past does not equal the future. Yeah.
Yeah, very good.
Neuroplasticity, man. And how about this, man? I love that. And this really hits home too. All life or whole life excellence. Because I learned that when I started getting into self-improvement and personal growth, that, you know, one thing affects everything else. You know, you're not improving at work and then you're lousy at home. No, one thing affects the other. So everything affects everything else. So I like this. A whole life or all life excellence.
Yeah, that whole life excellence is profound. And the
Love
reason
it.
why is because I think done are the days of the superstar athlete being great at one thing.
Right.
At
Yeah.
their sport or whatever. But then they're a dumpster fire in all the other areas of their life. I mean, you can look at a lot of those superstars and say, oh, yeah, they're great. And we all admire them, you know, for their elite ability in one area. But it's hard to admire them as individuals, as whole people. And I don't know about you, but, you know, I remember my wife saying to me one day, she said, Gary, you know, if you wanted to be a millionaire, you would be. And, you know, first of all, I can't tell you what that did for my ego because I needed to hear it because sometimes we just don't make as much money as we'd like. But I thought to myself, you know, she's kind of right. If my entire sole goal with my life was to be a millionaire, and same for you, you probably would be. And maybe you are. But you probably would be. If it was 10 million, you'd probably get there. But you and I are trying to balance all these different things in our life, and we're trying to be excellent at everything. And so there's a cost. And the great Thomas Sowell said it this way. Historian and philosopher. He said,
I love it.
Everything is a trade-off. There's nothing in life that is like free. Everything is a trade-off. There's nothing else that nothing else exists that isn't a trade-off. And so, but it doesn't mean that you can't be excellent at everything.
That's right.
And so I think you can be in I have 9 different domains of life, and I think you can be excellent at all 9. Why can't you be?
Yeah, I had to balance that when I was doing, you know, I was LA's comedy cop. So I was cop by day, comedian by night. Yeah. And because you know, and so important, like, you know, developing relationships, because I had a relationship with a headliner and I was doing comedy, and people said, hey, we need you to come to this fundraiser for the police, knowing that I don't really have an hour. So I hooked up with a headliner, and I said, well, what's your budget? You know, 500, you know, hey, will you come over for 500 and do, you know, 40 minutes? Yeah. And then through that, you know, they hired me as their opener. And so, but, you know, part of me wanted to be a full-time comedian, but, you know, I had to pick and choose. Am I going to commit my police work? Am I going to, you know, I can't really go all in. So, But because I was lucky that through the relationships, I couldn't spend the time, developing relations with all these bookers, but I could have a relationship with these headliners and they could hire their own opener, which would be me. But, I didn't have the time doing both jobs. And I made the decision to stick with my full-time police job and do the comedy when I could, but I had to pick and choose, right?
Yeah, I think like I have an exercise called the idea of me.
Yes. Oh,
The
I love it. Yeah.
the idea of me. And so what I've done is in those 9 different categories, listen, you can't worry about all the pebbles in every category. Like there's
Right.
too many of them. But if you think about it, there's 2 or 3 things that I call boulders. You can get the boulders that hold the vast majority of the weight in each of
Yeah.
those categories. So for example, in my physical health, are there 10,000 things I can do when it comes to my physical health? Of course there
Yes,
are.
of course.
There's
Yeah.
all these pebbles. But what are the biggies? Eating right, sleeping, moving is pretty much the 3, right? And maybe a 4th is recovery. And so it's like, yeah, if I just worry about those 3 or 4 things, I'll be fine.
You'll be
And so there,
fine. Yeah.
can I arrange my life in such a way that I'm addressing the boulders in all of those categories? Absolutely, you can. It's not that hard.
Yeah. I just graduated from it's a Primal Health Coach Institute. Mark Sisson is the guy, man. He's in his 70s. He's jacked, And man, this guy, but he has like 10 primal laws, right? He eats meat, fish, fowl, eggs, vegetables, fruits, nuts, and seeds. Stays away from sugars, breads, and chemically altered oils. Then he moves a lot. He lifts heavy things. Every once in a while, he'll deadlift once or twice a week. He gets plenty of sleep, plenty of sunlight, and he plays at something. He does competitive frisbee, and he doesn't do stupid things like drink and drive or not pay attention, text that might get you hurt or killed. And then he's always learning new things and reading new books. And those 10 primal laws are they're easy to do on a daily basis, really. Yeah.
They really are. Like I sit in the sauna. Like I get up at 3:45. I go to the gym. I sit the first 20 minutes. I sit in a sauna like every 5 days a
Yeah.
week.
I do
And
something
it's
you do. I read the Bible in the morning. I spend my time with the Lord. And then
too.
I don't have my cell phone on. I heard you talking. You do similar types of routines.
Yeah, me too. Same thing. And I practice breathing exercises when I'm in the sauna. Why
That's
not? I
right.
do a little bit.
Yeah.
Do a little bit of Wim Hof every morning.
Yeah, Wim Hof. Yeah. I
I
do
do
that when
that
we have an island in upstate New York, so we go there for the summer. I'm in Florida right now, so when I first get up there in May, the water temperature is about 55, 56. But that's just right. I go in and I can only last about 45 seconds to a minute, but I think it's so good for you.
It's so good. It's so good. So yeah. So yeah. Can you do all the pebbles? You might actually do a lot of the pebbles anyway,
Yeah.
like breath work, which is really important. But yeah, it's like, okay, when it comes to my family, like what are the 2 or 3 things I can
Yeah.
do that put me in an optimal position to be successful every day or every week? It's go out on a date every Saturday morning with my wife.
right.
So we live in coffee mecca here in Seattle. So we like to go
Yeah.
to the coffee shop every Saturday morning and have our date and talk and connect and
So
and
important.
so
Yeah.
I'll call my parents once a week. That's
Yeah.
another one of the really big things. And then try to connect with each of my kids on a regular basis. Multiple times per week. So yeah, I mean, when it comes to the fundamentals of every category, you can most certainly do it. It's not too difficult.
No, it's not at all. Man, that's really good. And I've been watching. I don't know if you ever watched. Something hit with me with this show. I started watching that series with Deion Sanders, Prime or Prime Time.
Oh
Or,
yeah.
so this hit.
Amazing.
So at one of the training when he was at Jackson State University, the first couple seasons. So who comes to one of the games or one of the practices? Actually, was Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, and he's wearing number 54. He says, I always tried out for the NFL. They have 53 men on their roster. I was always number 54. I never made it. So I wear that. That chip is still on my shoulder. And that happened to me. I was so enthralled with wanting to be on the sports teams with my friends in high school, and I never made the team. And that chip is still on my shoulder. I really think that's why I still train and exercise. But when he said that, I go, man, that hits the home, Rock. Man.
I think that's so cool because in my world, in the professional athlete world, there's a lot of guys who like have a sort of a like, what can I get out of stuff? Like, how far can I go? What can I do? And then you have other guys and it's just as valid, who have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. And they're just like, I hate losing. Some guys love to win. Some people hate
Yeah.
to lose. And it's one of those two for most people. And for me, I hate to lose. And
Yeah.
I want to love to win more, but I hate losing more.
I hate
And
to
so I,
lose, but I'm a pretty good loser. I usually go with the mindset. I usually go, you know what? I needed to get my ass kicked today. I needed that. You know
yeah,
what? That woke me up. That's good. So I,
yeah,
what's good about this? Like you always ask positive questions to yourself. I do the same thing because we're kind of made up of what kind of questions we ask. So I'm like, what's good about this? What did I learn about this? So I'm a pretty good loser, but I hate to lose. Let me ask you a question. I'm gonna let you coach me on this. And I'm glad I have this. But so when I was bowling in a league and I found out what do I have to do to get my PBA card? Well, I got to be in a league and I got to average over 210 or something for 2 years and then I can apply to get my card. But when I was going, when I'm in a bowling league, I was always keeping track of, what's our stats? Are we in first, second, third place? What's my average this week? Did I miss any spares? So now that I'm playing tennis, I'm at a tennis club down here, and now I'm playing doubles because everybody plays doubles. But it's not a league, and everybody's playing for fun. I don't really like it. I don't like playing for fun. I like to be competing. Is that bad or what?
no, it's not. So I think you surrendering to your competitive nature is the best thing you can do,
Yeah.
because if you don't, you're going to suppress it.
Right.
And
Yeah,
so,
you're right.
and
Oh,
so somehow God gave you that inclination and that
yeah.
tool to bring the best out of you. He already knew that would bring the best out of you. And so for
Yeah.
you to be in competitive environments and hate to lose, yeah, I think you should tap into that. I think, see, a lot of people in my world think that the ego is bad, and you hear oftentimes that the
Yeah.
ego is bad. I just don't think that's true. It's kind of like carbs. Like God gave you carbs for a reason. Like
Yeah.
not all carbs are bad, and you shouldn't. A lot of people just have a bad relationship with carbs, and I don't feel good when I have too many carbs. So I get the illustration. I sort of get the point. However, carbs serve a purpose
That's
for our
right.
body.
Yeah.
I think in the same way, so does the ego. You have an ego, like
That's
you're
right.
born with it. And so why
Yeah.
not tap into that and for the best of, so you can be at your very best. And I don't see anything wrong with that. So what I like to say is, like those ceilings that have like the tile top,
Yeah.
they're sort of a light wafer kind of tile on the top.
Yeah.
What I would love to see from my athletes is their ego rise to the point where their head is touching that tile. And every now and again, when it goes too high, you just simply got to come down a little bit. And
Yeah.
I've experienced that. You've experienced that, where you kind of go, oh, I'm a little bit too full of myself here, right?
Yeah.
I think I know too much, and then you get humbled in some way and you're like, oh, maybe I don't know as much as I thought, or maybe I need to tame this down a bit. But the reason why I think it's such a good thing is because confidence is necessary for you
Yes.
to excel at anything. And
Anything.
if you are hesitant, you are not confident.
That's
And
right.
in order to accomplish and achieve things that are very difficult, you have to be supremely confident. So yeah, that's the risk you take, is going a little bit too high over that tile. But on the other hand, I need you like right there.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, because you did 27 years pastoring. Are you still like feel commissioned to try to bring people to the Lord, or do you don't ever bring that in, or is your work, as someone put it very, I can't remember the name of the guy in the book, but he said, your work is really your ministry. And so, you show it by what you do and how you're acting with people. Is that kind of how you go about it now?
Well, it's such a great question, because it's I was leading at a national level in my denomination. So I led a local congregation. I started one from scratch here in Seattle, and built it
Yeah.
up to a couple hundred people, and then I led on a regional level. Then I led on a national level, and I just got burnt out. I just was doing too
Yeah.
much. It's not easy to see, how that happened. I didn't have a moral failure or anything like that. I just ran out of gas. I just didn't
Yeah.
have any
Yeah.
more in the tank. And so I had this moment where I felt like, oh man, like now's a good time for a midlife crisis. Like in my late
Yeah.
40s, like, and how do I want to respond to this? Do I want to buy a Camaro, or a Monte Carlo or something or do I want to just kind of reset my career? And I had to work through a couple things really deeply. And one of them was so significant that it changed the way that I completely think about God and ministry and what I do
Yeah.
now. So the best way to describe it is that, first of all, we have an identity,
Right.
and our job is to get to know us. Because if we've been created by God, our job is to get to know the creation that we are. So if God made us a particular tool, let's say he made you a hammer, but did you know there are 9 different kinds of hammers?
Yeah.
There's a lot of different. There's sledgehammer, finish hammers. I mean, there's all. I mean, all types of hammers. So you got to figure you out. So the identity piece and living out your identity actually is an act of worship to God because you're being used in the way that you've been created.
I love it.
If you are led by your ambition and what you want to do with your life, then, well, I would love to play linebacker for the Seahawks, or I'd love to be a rock star, or I'd love to do this, or, well, no, but that's not how God created it. There's a level of surrender that it takes to be able
Yes.
to live, to be the person that God created you to be. So I surrender to that in my identity. So number 1 is identity. Number 2 is what's your purpose?
Yeah.
Okay, so you got to figure that out. And I have exercises for every single one of these where I can teach someone with precision down to the very words that they use, not a concept, down to the very words on what their identity and their purpose is. But then after purpose, there's a calling on your life.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, so purpose is why am I here, which is an existential question. You don't have to be a person of, let's say, the Christian faith to ask the question. Well, why
That's
am I
right.
here? Everybody
Yeah.
asks that question, right?
Yeah.
So your purpose, your calling is what should I do with my life?
Yeah.
So you have an identity, you have a purpose, you have a calling, and you have a vision for your life. How do you see, which is seeing, how do you see your life in the future? So you have a vision for your life, and then you have assignments, and your assignments will
Yes.
change.
Okay.
So
They
think
change.
of,
Okay.
think of the Apostle Paul, right?
Yes.
So
Love them.
he had a purpose with his life, which was to
Yeah.
glorify God. He had a calling on his life, which was to proclaim the gospel. The assignments, though, changed a lot. Sometimes
Yes.
he would go here, sometimes he would go to Corinth, or he would go
Yeah.
to Lydia, or he would go somewhere else. So sometimes he would tent make. He would say, "I need to call a time out in my life, and I'm just going to go get a regular job for a while."
Yeah.
And
He
then
would just work in the wherever city, right? And he would be like the leather maker or whatever. Yeah. Yeah. That's
exactly.
cool.
So he would be in Lystra. He would go other. So the assignments always change. The purpose stays the same. Your identity stays the same. Your calling pretty much stays the same.
Okay.
So it was to proclaim the God. The assignments changed.
Gotcha.
Okay. So now here's what I hear. For example, I have coached a lot of pastors, and they'll say, "Well, I'm called to this church." I'm like, "You're never called to a church. Never, ever,
No.
ever, ever, ever. You're called to do what God has called you to do."
Yeah.
And for Paul, it was to proclaim the gospel, and that was so strong in him. It was so strong that Cliff, that he went to Corinth, and they said, "Hey, why don't you do some baptisms?" And what did Paul say? "I didn't come to baptize.
That's
Find
right.
somebody else
Yeah.
to do that. I came to proclaim." And I think what a great example. We don't have to be all things to all people. We just need to do our thing.
Right.
So figure out what your thing is. So you have an identity, a purpose, a calling, a vision, and now you have your unique strategy to get there. This
Yeah.
is like what comes natural to you. Like how
Yeah.
could you accomplish these things just naturally? And then you have personal philosophy, which is how I should wake up every
Yeah.
day. And then you have like a plan to execute. So I've created a simple formula for everyone to make goals and make
Great.
plans. They're called 4x4s.
4x4s.
Goals every 4 months, right? So
Oh, I like
September to December, January to April, May to August. Okay, 4 goals every 4 months. Long enough that you can accomplish them, short enough where you better get on it.
That's right.
So and you can determine your own goals, right? So four goals every 4 months, and those are 4x4s. And if you put all of that together, Cliff, you get whole life excellence.
Oh man, that's great. Thank you for that.
Yeah. So I do 2 things in my life. I do the playbook for the mind, which is what I take professional athletes and business people through, and I have a game plan for life, which is how to live a highly optimized life. And so the game plan for life is answering all of those questions.
Awesome, man. I owe you a lot of money for this. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, I have. I'm going to keep you only 5 more minutes, if that's okay.
Sure.
Yeah. That really made a lot of sense to me, and it bolsters my mood a little bit. Sometimes I was getting down a little bit. I have, which I think is good, is that I have I'm satisfied. I'm not. I'm content. Dissatisfaction. In other words, I'm content. Everything that I've worked for and has come to, but I'm still dissatisfied to the point that I'm driven, and I'm finding, and I don't people my age and people I hang around with, a lot I'm connected with. Like, these people I'm not resonating.
They're winding down with their life.
Yeah, and I'm not, and I have no interest in that.
Well, what does the Bible say about Moses? Like, he died wide-eyed. Like,
yes,
he died.
Yeah. Live until you die, right? Live until you die.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I like to think of it this way. It's like, with in the story of Lord of the Rings. I'm not a super big sci-fi guy, but Lord of the Rings, you have Frodo, who's been stung by a spider and is wrapped up in his cocoon.
Yes.
And everyone thinks he's dead, right?
Yeah.
And then you have the good old Samwise, his best friend, come looking for him, find him, cut him down from this tree. Frodo lands on the ground, and Samwise cuts that cocoon open, and he finds that Frodo, he's living, but he's not alive. And we have an entire culture full of people who are living,
but they're not alive. Yeah.
And you and I are cocoon cutters.
Yeah, we're cocoon cutters. Oh. Hold me back, Gary.
Yeah. And so to circle back to your original question of like, how do I reconcile ministry and what I do now?
Yes. Yeah, I'm interested in that. Yeah.
So to me, there's no difference.
Right.
So my identity is the same. In fact, I feel more me today than I ever have because there's less constraints on me. Number two, my purpose hasn't changed, is to glorify God, right? To make him manifest.
Yes.
Glorify means to make God manifest. So wherever I go, I make him manifest. My calling is still the same, which is to unlock people, right? Unlock people with potential, right? So it doesn't matter whether I'm pastor or doing what I'm doing. It doesn't matter. Okay. Right. The assignment has changed, but my vision to have a generational impact hasn't changed. So everything is the same except the assignment. But now the assignment's way funner. It's way more fun because it's like, oh, I don't have as many constraints on me, and I can be and go and do whatever I want to do. And Cliff, when you surrender to God, you surrender to your way that you've been created. You surrender to it, and then you start like living out of the overflow of your game plan. Oh my, amazing things. I can't even express to you how many things have come into my life. For example, the owners of Jesus.net came to me and said 250 million clicks per year. And they want to put my game plan for life on their website, 42 different languages. So you talk about like a generational global impact. Just surrender to the way you've been created, dive in, live out of the overflow. And listen, this is what I tell people. Listen, you don't need to, spend and waste the majority of your life trying to find your identity, purpose, calling, all those. What if you could figure it out in 2 days?
That's right. Yeah.
And then the rest of your life is simply executing and say, oh, I want to live out of the overflow of this and go live to your max mobility, because I don't know about you, but I want to max out for God. I want to give him my very best.
I'm going to die at his feet, exhausted. Job well done. Gary, before I let you go, and I want all my police associates, I know you're really taking on some training of police agencies and mental wellness and whatnot. I was contacted just a few months ago with a fellow retiree, and just the scourge, or the terrible thing we have with the police suicides and first responder suicides going up. So the fact that you're going to be talking with police agencies about mental wellness and strength, God bless you, and I want to thank you for doing that. And please, all my police agencies and friends, go to elitemindsetnation.com and see maybe if you can work with Gary, because to me, it's not, mindset is pretty much everything, really. That's the top dog. So I think we were blessed with choices through our mindset. So any final words? Thanks for taking this time with me. I mean, I probably got more out of it than maybe anybody else did, and I so appreciate you, brother.
Well, it's a conversation, right? Like none
Yeah.
of us are experts on this stuff, but we all have stories to tell. And so you've been a great host. Thank you very much. Continue to do the work that you're doing. Live out of the overflow, and great things happen.
Thank you, my brother. And hang out for just a 2-second debriefing. Gary Chupik, thank you.